welcome to Freedom Fighters Code Grey. This is a show where we discuss human trafficking, an issue that's taking place in our own backyard. In today's episode, I'm really excited to have with me two inspiring community leaders who are helping journey alongside people and promote wellness and healing after they've experienced trauma. So welcome, Sash and Ash, and I'm so glad that you're here today.
Woo, thank you so much. That was not rehearsed.
Well, I'm excited to have this conversation today. So just to start off with, could you both introduce yourself to our viewers?
Yeah, so I'm Sash.
And I'm Ash.
And we are Born Legacy.
Amazing. And so just for folks who maybe have never heard about Born Legacy before, what is it? What is Born Legacy and why did you start it?
Yeah, so we are an organization that works with women who have experienced trauma, abuse, who are, stuck in that low self-confidence, have a lot of barriers that really prohibit them from actually showing up in the world and being their best selves. In order to get them to recognize, how our experiences in life actually shape and mold our behaviors, our decisions, our day-to-day actions. And when we can become aware of that, we can recognize the destructive patterns and cycles that we're kind of in. And so we teach people how to become self-aware, to recognize, how we're being in the world and actually start going for what we want once we can move beyond those barriers and limitations of everything we've been through.
Wow, amazing. I love the work that you're doing. It's so important in the community. And we know that trafficking is a traumatic experience for those who have been trafficked. So I was just wondering if you could just take some time to explain to our viewers what exactly is trafficking and when did you first hear about
it? So you can look up the definition and you'll get a whole bunch of definitions everywhere, but we kind of like to sum it down to the context of human trafficking being when an individual or people are coerced, forced, or manipulated into performing sexual favors for some kind of compensation, which is usually compensated towards the trafficker or the person who's in control. And I think we both heard about human trafficking from the time we were small, but we've had our own experiences into the world of sexual exploitation at different periods in our lives. I don't know if you want us to share about that now or later, but...
Yeah, it's totally up to you. If you feel comfortable sharing and want to talk a little bit about that, absolutely.
Sure. So for myself, I was never trafficked per se, but my first experience with sexual exploitation was when I was 15 years old. I was at a party and I was a virgin at the time. I was hanging out with, some people I had never really hung out with before. And I don't know if I was drugged. I believe that I was because it was an intoxication that I had never experienced before. But I woke up sometime throughout the night with my pants off and somebody on top of me. And it, at the time, was a very vulnerable, scary, and overall overwhelming experience where I felt really exploited, but I didn't even realize in that moment how much it would go on to shape my beliefs about myself and about men and sex from such a young age. And we often don't see the aftermath of just how we're affected in those situations. And for Ashley,
I wouldn't say I was necessarily trafficked. There's a bit of a difference between, someone, working for money and selling themselves for money, and someone being manipulated and a lot of the time beaten into trafficking, kidnapped, whatever. There's definitely lines to it and different variations. But when I was about 18 years old, this wouldn't have been my first exposure to sexual exploitation, but this is a little bit of a insight to, my own story that, I was 18 years old and, I fell in love for the first time, and at least, what I felt was the first time. And, we had talk of future plans, and I really fell head over heels for this guy. I had never felt any way about someone the way I did him. And, at one point he had asked me to be a stripper. And for me, that really broke me, because here I thought this was somebody who loved me, who wanted to marry me, who wanted to have children with me. And, to find out that was just a lie, that he had been kind of fueling me towards building up to that question. It really destroyed my world. And I would say that I ended up actually pursuing that world for a little while, and I didn't do it with him because I was so emotionally attached to him. I knew that he had a power over me that I didn't feel like I would have been comfortable or been able to get out of, because of the way that I felt he had this way of getting into my head and my heart.
Manipulation.
Definitely was manipulation, but I didn't know that at the time. But I just knew that, for me, I had experienced so many different times when men just wanted sex, nothing else, right? And they would get that and they would leave. And so it became this belief inside of me that men only wanted me for sex. Mm-hmm. And so when this man that I absolutely loved and adored and wanted to spend my life with, asked me to be this for us, and to make money for us, that really made me feel like, okay, what else do I have then? If this is how he sees me, clearly I'm not valuable enough to be loved. And a whole lot of other beliefs and experiences built up on top of that as well. But that really pushed me into, I'm going to pursue this world, and, screw you. I'm not doing with you. I'll go find somebody who I'm not attached to. I'm not, they won't pull those strings. And so I ended up, I really devalued myself, and that was a huge turning point in my life.
Sasha and Ashley, thank you so much for your courage to share today and entrust your stories with me and with our viewers. And as you were both sharing, one thing that I heard is how your experiences really impacted your understanding of your value and worth. And there were some lies and misconceptions that you started to believe about those things. So I'm just wondering if you'd be willing to share, how did you, once those situations happened, what were some of the steps that you took? And I understand that, healing is not a linear process. And so this may have been fluid and looked different at different times, but what were some things that helped you in terms of resetting or challenging your assumed constraints about yourself to understand that, no, you are valuable, you are worthy of love?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michaela. And like you said, healing is such a journey. And for Ashley and I both, those scenarios that we just talked about were like tip of the iceberg, because when, especially as a female, but this can go for anybody, when you become so devalued and your self-esteem becomes so low, you have no standards for your life or what you accept into your life as positive treatment. So you'll just allow people to treat you like crap, to abuse you, to use you. And so Ashley and I went through very destructive cycles for a number of years and were victimized multiple times because of our mindsets. So where that transformation happened is we both had near-death, life-transforming situations that happened where we were like, okay, we need to start doing things differently. And so we started to invest in ourselves. We started to develop our minds, to build self-awareness, to surround ourselves around people that could show us how to step into a different version of ourselves. And the biggest part in that is taking responsibility, because when we are victimized, we get stuck in this victim survival mode, and we just continue allowing life to happen to us, and we allow ourselves to be victimized over and over. So taking that responsibility of, it's not my fault what happened to me, but it is my responsibility to choose how I move forward. That's when everything started to shift.
Yeah. And it can really take, huge, like sometimes it takes like a near-death experience or something to really shake you to your core. And, a quote that Tony Robbins says is, until the fear of pain, the fear of pain outweighs that fear of change, nothing is ever going to, it's just, everything's going to remain the same. Nothing is going to actually shake you to make those shifts. And so it's so important that, like Sash said, is that you're constantly looking at like, how can I take responsibility and how I'm going to move forward in my life, because it's so easy to stay in that blame situation and the pain and the emotion of what's happened.
And it really affects how we show up in the world and how our future unfolds before us.
Yeah.
I could imagine that there's someone who's tuning in or listening today, and they may have shared a similar experience in their life, and they want to take that next step and show up and take responsibility and move forward. And they don't want to get to that near-death experience. Maybe that hasn't happened yet. What would you say to someone that's in that situation? What's a first step that they could take?
I would think like one thing that we found so valuable is knowing you're not alone, knowing that other people have been through similar things, and it may not have all been the same, but we can all relate in some way. And when you are around other people, especially women, when women come together and know that like, hey, this happened and this is how I worked through it, that gives somebody else hope to know that they can now move through it. Maybe they didn't know how to move through it. It's like just hearing somebody else's story and how they did it gives us an idea of how we could move forward ourselves. And I would really say just that community aspect is so vital.
So finding, some kind of group setting, especially one-on-one, it works, but being in a community of people that are like-minded, that understand each other, where you can connect and feed off each other and fuel each other. That's what Born Legacy is, a community of like-minded women that support, encourage, and uplift each other to just thrive and empower each other to, become our best versions.
Yeah, just because you can, when you have like fewer people, you may be able to relate, but when a group setting, you're more likely to find somebody you resonate with, that, friendships are born. Friendships, get created. And, when you have a bigger dynamic, you're more likely to find somebody that you connect.
So you mentioned that it's important for people to know that they're not alone in their struggle, and that there are people who want to come alongside them and support them and encourage them. And that resonates with me as well, from just individuals who I've talked to who have experienced various forms of exploitation or various forms of trauma. And often there's a lie that's believed that I'm alone in this. I can't tell anyone. And when it becomes in the secret place, it's really hard to find freedom, because we need to bring that to light to be able to say, hey, okay, I'm not alone in this. And there's others who have journeyed through it who want to journey alongside me. So I'm just so grateful, Sash and Ash, for what you're doing in our community to come alongside women, to empower and uplift them and support them. And so we're just going to continue this discussion, and I'm really looking forward to that after a really short break. Welcome back to Freedom Fighters Code Gray. In this episode, we're talking to two inspiring community leaders, the co-founders of Born Legacy, Sash and Ash, and we're just so excited to continue this conversation. So just to start off with, why did you start Born Legacy?
Yeah, so it gets us both excited. As you can see, we're both ready to jump on it. So I guess just through our journey of, destruction and walking, the paths of drug addiction, abuse, domestic violence, prostitution, and really hitting that rock bottom and going through that complete transformation and seeing how profoundly the results were in our own lives, other people started reaching out. And we realized in that moment, we really had the key to something powerful. And that we knew there was so much of the tools and the wisdom that we were learning, and how available it was to a lot of people, but not necessarily shaped for the demographics we truly resonate with. And so we really wanted to, go to those dark places and be like, hey, we got the torch, follow, we really wanted to really spread that light and lead that way to say, hey, we're not above you, you're not below us. We're all here together. We're all here to rise. We want to bring the best out in each and every one of the community and in the world, because we all have greatness within us. And sometimes it takes somebody else seeing that greatness in us for us to realize it ourselves.
Yes.
You know, we know that in our journey, it took having an influence of somebody else believing in us and showing us that we're worthy, that we borrowed that for a little while until we could build that confidence ourselves and start to see that, hey, I am valuable. I am awesome. Sorry for the language. You know, but to really just, you know, spread that light is truly why we are doing this.
Amazing. And your website says healing is a journey, transformation is a journey. So can you help explain, how do your workshops and the services and programs you provide embody this? What does it look like for someone who's maybe thinking about getting connected with you folks?
Yeah, great question. So again, tying into that concept of healing is a journey. Sometimes we think that with a couple awarenesses and a couple tools, we can transform our lives. And while it can create little shifts in our lives, it doesn't make a whole huge drastic difference all at once. We also realize that when you come from a space of years or decades of pent up old paradigms that are just like keeping you so limited, it takes a lot of work to bust through those and to work through those. So the way we designed our workshops is in a 5-chapter series. We refer to them as chapters because Born Legacy is all about writing your own story, taking control over that pen and writing a story that you want to actually live. So in chapter 1, Epiphany, it's really about opening people's minds up to a new concept, a new way of thinking that they may not have really ever recognized before, to know that there's more to life than what they have seen up until this point. In chapter 2, Revelation, we go really deep into understanding ourselves, our triggers, our emotions, our destructive cycles, why our life looks the way it does, and taking responsibility for it. In chapter 3, Limitless Goddess, it's all about empowerment. It's about stepping into our higher self and anchoring into what is actually possible when we are in our full limitless potential. In chapter 4, Love After Abuse, that's about learning how to heal and move forward into relationships so that we're not bringing past baggage into relationships and just bringing those destructive patterns and cycles forward, because it'll just keep us in the same cycles, right? And then the last chapter, chapter 5, which is Create Yourself, that's about creating an image for where you want to take your life, creating a dream, and us setting you up with the tools, resources, and mindsets to actually go after that dream. So when we become victimized so much in our lives, we get stuck in this survival mode where we think life is what it is and there's nothing better for us. So we have to start to rewire our minds to think differently and to do things differently. And that's what our programs are all about, just that rewiring of our brains to serve us in a better way.
I know that you've helped support many women in their journeys and done workshops with groups of folks. And so I'm wondering if there's a story that you could share of someone who participated in a workshop and where you've seen that shift from survival mode to, you know, that limitless potential that they have and where they've really grown in their healing. Is there anything you could share?
Yeah, you know what? I think the most beautiful part about what we do is watching people go from hopeless to hopeful. I think that's the biggest shift you can really make in someone's life. Now, we've only been doing this for about 1.5 years. So as much as we've seen a lot of drastic change, transformation doesn't necessarily happen overnight like that. So
it also depends on the person's commitment and dedication and willingness to take that action too.
But the cool thing about our programs is that they're not catered to just surface level issues. It's not catered for, it's not a cookie cutter design that only fits one mold of person. It is about healing the whole person, the whole mind, body, soul, and it's shaped to each individual. So we've had people come through that were addicted to drugs, meth and heroin, things like that, because of their coping mechanisms to past traumas that are now clean off drugs and have been for, over 1 year. We've had people who come in with serious anger and aggression issues that are taking things out on their families, ready to leave their families, that have now brought the tools back to their family and have created harmony in their households. So the results are so different. It depends on the situation, individual to individual, but even the people who haven't fully committed, you see just this switch in how their mind starts to operate. And I think that's the most beautiful part about what we do. The huge transformation is amazing, but it's those small little shifts that add up that create that transformation.
So beautiful. I love how you highlighted that each person, their journey is unique. and what each individual is struggling with and where they're heading and their dreams and their goals. Everyone's unique. And so I love that your approach is very holistic, but also comes alongside people and meets them where they're at, not just kind of fitting everyone in the same mold or box. I think that's really, really amazing. We've talked a lot about value and worth and people not understanding that they're valuable or that they're not worthy. And I know that one of the biggest risk factors to being trafficked here in Canada is wanting to be loved. And so on the prevention side, if we can help instill people to know that they are valuable, that they are worthy, that it can make a difference. And so I just wanted to know if you had any ideas about how we can promote these concepts and educate, in particular, women and girls with this empowering knowledge.
Yeah. Do you want me to take it? You can start it. Yeah, absolutely. I think, from a very young age, girls are taught that we're supposed to look a certain way, be a certain way, dress a certain way. And it starts right in elementary school. And really, it even starts before that with our parents and our belief systems. There's so many levels to it. But we now exist in a generation where social media is so prominent, where girls at such a young age think that they have to look like a Barbie to fit in. And right away, those belief systems just anchor in, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough. Now, what happens when we start to feel that we are not valuable or we are not worthy of love? Personally, I can share this example for myself. I would just latch on to anybody that gave me attention. And so it's so important to have a foundation of love and to teach our daughters and our children respect for themselves, and not just to say, we're taught, don't talk to strangers. But it's not that whole necessarily, here, little kid, you want some candy, come get in my van. We need to teach our children, as much as it's a hard conversation to have, what the buildup and manipulation actually looks like, what red flags actually look like, how we can be taken for granted. The education and awareness is so important because, like Ashley was sharing earlier, she fell in love with somebody that was manipulating her into that world, and she had no idea that was happening. And this happens all the time. In fact, that is more so the case rather than people just coming and abducting people. It's the coercion and the manipulation into that world.
Yes, really, like they charm you and that wine and dine you and make you feel a certain way, right? There's so many different components to what it could actually look like. And, I think Sash kind of hit it head on, is like, we have to start from when they're children. And also, we can't rewind time too, right? So it's just better learning how to trust our intuition, especially as women. We all have a guidance system, but women even more so have an inner knowing of, what pulls us, like what feels right and what doesn't. And we have to learn to listen to that. I've had a really incredible journey of being able to learn that. I was able to, I left the country for almost a year, and I got to connect in with my true feelings and really get to know, what is my inner voice? What is not the negative self-talk, the guidance system? What does that look like? Learning to trust that. We have to really learn to feel that. And I think that's so important as we grow up, is to learn to trust our intuition and know that that first instinct, that first thought is usually the right one. That's the one we're supposed to listen to. Some people say that's God speaking to them, but we have a connection, and we have to learn to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many things that you have shared that I feel like I would love to comment on. Educating kids at an early age, helping them understand what respect looks like and boundaries and knowing their worth and living that out and trusting their instincts. So many great things with follow-up questions, but just given the time we have, I would just love to know, what are your future plans? What are your dreams for Born Legacy? What's ahead?
Yeah. So we really starting this out, because of our stories, we're like, yes, this is all, for women. We're going to work with women. We want to build a community of women and push them. And we realized there's an imbalance there, because what we teach is literally universal. It's not just men. or women. It's all. And so we are currently pivoting into, we're still working with women, but we also are pivoting into organizations. So trying to work with our demographic through the jail systems, the justice systems, the social services, the bridge between, organizations that are helping get jobs and housing, because the mindset is so important to balance with all of that and sustaining those things.
And to go international, because this is not just a local issue, this is an international issue. 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted. Men go through it too. It's all over the world. And we need to come together in unity to raise our conscious awareness and raise our level of understanding so that we can grow and flourish to the best of our abilities.
Incredible. Partnerships, international growth. I'm so excited to see where you're both heading. Where can people learn more information about the great work that you're doing and find ways to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can check us out on our website, www.bornlegacy.ca.
Our handle, bornlegacy_coaching.
On
Instagram, Facebook. We are Born Legacy Coaching as well. Those are probably our main ones.
Or you can email us at info@bornlegacy.ca.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sasha and Ashley, for all you do to support, uplift, and empower women in our community, and just the many ways that you promote healing from trauma. Honestly, the work that you're doing is so invaluable, and you're both inspiring, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken today to be here and to join me on the show.
Oh, we're so honored. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Very much so.
So viewers, if you're tuning in today and you are in immediate danger, if it's safe to do so, please call 911. If you're looking for information and support as it relates to human trafficking in Canada, you can call our human trafficking hotline 24/7, and there's multiple languages available at 1-833-900-1010. Again, that's 1-833-900-1010. Thanks so much for tuning in today to learn about this issue that's impacting our community and what community leaders are doing to promote healing and assisting those who have exited traumatic experiences. We hope that you join us next time on Freedom Fighters Code Gray.